If you're wondering what you should do, you should just don't do any work. You know, it's God says it over and over and over. It's like he knows we have a problem with this. But our other response is to just simply ignore it. And on this one, we have some evidence on why we should ignore it. Because, I mean, after all, didn't Jesus brush this command off? If you know the story of Jesus, you know that there are a number of times when he heals people on the Sabbath day. You know, he goes up to this one guy with a crippled hand, and he heals the guy, and then the Pharisees are nearby, and they're saying, okay, it's the Sabbath day, what are you doing? Or there's this other time where Jesus does something amazingly weird. He heals a guy who's crippled, he's on the ground, and he says to the man, get up, take your mat, and walk. But the man was carrying, in order to go home, he had to carry his mat. Jesus told him, take your mat and go home. But it was an explicit command in the Judaism culture that said one of the things you're not allowed to do on the Sabbath is to carry a mat. It was actually there. And so Jesus looks at this guy and he says, take your mat, and it's on the Sabbath day. He says, take your mat, go home. And the only way for the man to do that is for him to violate this command. It's like Jesus was saying directly to this guy, break the Sabbath. And then we come to this passage in Mark. I printed it on your note sheet here. It says, then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Okay, great. That's our out, right? That's our loophole. Because that means the Sabbath is made for me. So if it benefits me, great. I can go with it. But if it inconveniences my work schedule, then I don't really need to worry about it so much. It's just like, not that important. The Sabbath is made for me. That means I get to pick and choose when I apply it. Cool. We're all good, right? But I think Jesus didn't mean that. I think what Jesus meant was the Sabbath was made to benefit man. So that means if I miss the Sabbath, I miss a benefit. If I miss the Sabbath, I miss something that God intended for my good, right? So maybe, just maybe, it's not that I get to pick and choose what the Sabbath is all about. Maybe, just maybe, I need to understand what it's all about so I can receive its benefit. Follow me? So let's go ahead and go to Deuteronomy. This is our main passage for today. It's on page 127 in the Bibles we passed out. Deuteronomy chapter 5, beginning in verse 12. And this is the second edition of this command, the second version of this command. And you can see how this works out when God adds just a little bit more information. Deuteronomy 5, beginning in verse 12, says this, observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, as the Lord your God has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your manservant or maidservant, nor your ox, your donkey, or any of your animals, nor the alien within your gates, so that your manservant and maidservant may rest as you do. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. I remember the first time I looked at that verse. You see, the one in Exodus makes sense to me. God worked for 6 days and then he took a break. And if God doesn't need the whole universe to rely on him for one day, then if he can take a break from creation, then maybe I can take a break from the stuff I'm supposed to do, right? You know, I can relate to that. I can understand that. But when I first read the Deuteronomy one years ago, I thought, what's the deal with the slaves? Why in the world does the slave thing relate to this principle of 6 plus 1? This on and then off again kind of thing. I didn't understand that until I spent some more time thinking about it, and I realized that what God is trying to say to the people is he says, listen, there was a time in your life when you were slaves in Egypt. And when you were slaves in Egypt, there were people who told you what you needed to do. and they told you when you needed to wake up, and they told you how long you were supposed to work, and they controlled your life, and they said you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and every day of every week you were a slave. Every day you were a slave, and they told you what to do, and you had to do it. And God says, I'm sick of it. I brought you out of that. I intend for you to be free. And the last thing I want you to do is to get yourself into some type of slavery mindset that says, I got to keep working. I got to keep going. I got to keep doing. I got to keep moving. God says, no, you don't. You need to stop. You were slaves. Now you're not. I intend for you to be free. And so freedom is letting go of this need to do it all ourselves. The way I put it here is this phrase, you can fill in the blanks. The Sabbath preserves our freedom, and it does it by digging out our self-reliance. The Sabbath preserves our freedom, and it does it by digging out our self-reliance. I couldn't think of any better way of explaining this than just to give you a little illustration, share with you a little story. Here at this church, I serve on 3 different major teams. I serve on the worship team, I serve on the leadership team, and I serve on the teaching team, Sunday morning teaching team. And so, even though I have these different roles and responsibilities, in mid-July, I had the opportunity to go on vacation. In fact, my wife basically told me we needed to go on vacation. And she said, we're going to go to Florida, and you can come with us. And I was like, okay, probably should work. So we set up the plans. We made the plans. I was going to be gone for 1 week, 2 weekends on either side of that thing. And I could have done what we usually do, okay? I could have gone the legalistic route. My wife told me I had to go on vacation, therefore I'm going on vacation. And so every day of vacation, I'm thinking about what's going on back at the church, what's going on with the different teams that I'm a part of, what are all the different issues. I could have been making phone calls and sending text messages and doing email, buying a BlackBerry so that people could send me any kind of random information at any moment of the day, and I could make sure that something on my waist would buzz and let me know that essential information has just been sent my way of someone's Facebook status or whatever. And so I could have been attached to my stuff like that. This whole legalistic sort of, that's the way, by the way, we handle the Sabbath quite often, right? The Bible tells me I'm supposed to not work, so I don't work, but instead I sit in front of the TV pretending to relax and filling my mind with absolutely nothing while I'm doing work on the computer because I'm emailing my boss about something or whatever. It doesn't really matter. We do this legalistically. Well, luckily I didn't. Luckily, what I did is I said, you know what? I'm on teams. Doesn't mean I have to do this stuff all by myself.